There's a story of an ancient Tao farmer who one day his horse runs away from the village. And all the village people came up to the farmer and said, "What a terrible day this is. Horses are incredibly important for farming and they're very expensive. What a terrible day." And all the Tao farmer could say was, "Maybe." A couple days later, the horse returned with 3 other wild horses. And all the village people came to the Tao farmer and said, "What an amazing day this is. You were the luckiest farmer and the richest farmer in this village." And all the Tao farmer said was, "Maybe." A couple days later, the farmer's son was riding one of the wild horses, and the wild horse, because it was untamed, threw the son off its back, and the son fell into the ground and broke its leg. And all the village people came to the farmer and said, "What a terrible day this is." But all the Tao farmer could say was, "Maybe." A couple weeks later, the emperor walked into the village and they were conscripting all the young men to go to war, but the Tao farmer's son was passed on because he had a broken leg. And all the village people came to the Tao farmer and said, "What a lucky man you are." And all the farmer said was, "Maybe." And although this is more a parable and a story, I think it holds some great truth and it's a very practical wisdom for traders. Because I think nowadays a lot of traders get extremely elated when they take wins and they label this event an amazing event and a great event. And they're, in a sense, like the village people celebrating the win. And as a result, because they associate so much pleasure to winning, those very same traders also associate a lot of pain to losing. And when they take losses, they label losses incredibly bad and they're extremely upset and sad about losses. And I think there's great wisdom in what the Tao farmer, his reaction at least, is to circumstances, what people narrow-mindedly call good and bad circumstances. I think what the Tao farmer in this story, in this parable had, was more of an overview and long-term effect. He realized that nobody truly knows the consequences of any action. So you can take an action and you can see it from a very narrow perspective and label that either good or bad if it supports or challenges your priorities, but nobody actually knows the ripple effect of that action. So the message in today's video is, especially as a trader and investor in the markets, it's incredibly wise to have a perspective that's more long-term. And recognize that you don't want to be judging your wins and your losses too soon. You don't want to be labeling your wins good, you don't want to be labeling your losses bad, because in actuality, trading is less about an individual trade and it's more about a sample space. I think traders intellectually know that, but what they don't recognize is that if they get extremely elated when they win, they're going to get extremely depressed when they lose. And they're going to go on these wild oscillations and these wild swings instead of having more of a mentality like the Tao farmer, who in a sense is more stoic. And after wins, he has a longer term perspective and recognizes in the grand scheme of things, there may be consequences to these wins. And he also understands when there's an event that's initially perceived as challenging or bad, he recognizes that there may be some hidden blessings in that. And the story in the parable obviously demonstrates that. So my advice to traders and my philosophy that I pass on to my coaching clients and my guys and girls in the 12-week challenge is, in a sense, doing that exact thing. Whenever they take wins, recognize and expand the time and space horizons and recognize that that win is just one small piece of a larger sample space. And instead of getting elated when you win, to stay grounded, making yourself aware of the risks, the drawbacks, and the disservices of that win. And that isn't to beat yourself down for taking a win, but what it's doing is it's making you aware of the risks that are there, but you're initially blinded to. And so too when they take losses, to make themselves aware of the advantages, the benefits, the services, and the opportunities within those losses. My definition of an intelligent trader is a trader who's able to see both sides of an event and recognizes when they take losses, there are advantages to that, and recognizes when they take wins, there are drawbacks and risks towards that. So they don't get elated when they win and as a result depressed when they lose, but irrespective of the outcome, they recognize there's both advantage and disadvantage, which in a sense puts them in the best possible position to stick to their processes and their trading plan. So this video, there's two key messages I would love to share. First and foremost, I encourage traders to take more of the mentality of the Tao farmer. Obviously, it's not something that you just get whenever you want it. There's a reaction, there's an animalistic reaction when we take losses and when we take wins. So it takes training, but to, in a sense, look towards having more of a neutral mindset towards the outcome of your positions, which will put you in the best possible position to stick towards your processes. Because if we're extremely infatuated or attached to winning, we're going to seek after the pleasure of winning, and that's going to take us away from our trading plan. And if we're really resentful towards losing, we're going to fear losses and we're going to try and instinctively avoid losses, which is going to take us away from our trading plan. But if we recognize that there are drawbacks to winning and advantages to losing in equal degree, and we're not impulsively seeking winning or instinctively trying to avoid losses, it puts us in the best possible position to execute on our processes and our strategy and our plan. And there's a physiological change that happens in your brain as well, because the blood, glucose, and oxygen go out the more subcortical parts of your brain, your amygdala, that's more responsible for avoiding and seeking more animalistic, more survival, and it goes into the more advanced parts of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for strategic thinking and executing on plan. So from a physiological perspective, you also have an advantage if you're more neutral towards the outcome. So my two tips is developing that mindset. The second tip here is get really clear on your trading plan. I think every great trader recognizes the importance of having a great plan. So get crystal clear on your setups, your entries, your exits, and your risk. And those two things hand in hand, putting them together, having a great trading plan and also having great mindset is essential and is in a sense the wisest way to exceed and excel as a trader.